The city of Neo Aurora was alive with movement. Flying cars zipped past towering skyscrapers, their neon lights reflecting on the glass surfaces like rivers of color. The streets below were crowded with pedestrians, some human, some enhanced with cybernetic implants that made them faster, smarter, stronger. Amid the hum of drones and the occasional roar of airships overhead, Eric Taran walked calmly, his eyes scanning the streets for anything unusual. Eric was a junior security officer at Vostech Corporation, a company known for its advanced technology and its demanding CEO, Dr. Celine Voss. Everyone in the city knew her name. She was brilliant, strict, and unapproachable, or at least, that was the reputation she carried. But today, Eric had a different mission. One that didn't involve monitoring security systems or filing reports. Earlier that morning, while finishing his routine patrol, he had seen a small, scruffy dog wandering near the edge of the industrial sector. At first, he thought it was a stray. Neo Aurora had more than its share of them. But this dog was unusual. Its fur shimmered faintly under the neon lights, and there were small, blinking circuits along its back and neck, cybernetic enhancements. That was rare, even in a city like this. Eric crouched and held out his hand. The dog tilted its head, ears twitching. It didn't run. Instead, it walked cautiously toward him. Its eyes were intelligent. Too intelligent for a stray. Eric noticed a small, engraved tag on its collar. It read, Vostech, reward for safe return. A smile tugged at the corner of Eric's lips. Of course. It must belong to Dr. Celine Voss herself. He had heard stories about her cyber dog, named Pixel. Loyal, clever, and trained to help with data storage and retrieval. A small dog with a huge responsibility. Eric knew he couldn't just leave the dog on the streets. Neo Aurora wasn't safe for an ordinary pet, let alone a technologically enhanced one. He had to return Pixel to Dr. Voss, but the path back was not simple. Neo Aurora's industrial district was a maze of narrow alleys, automated factories, and rogue drones that often malfunctioned. He gently scooped up Pixel, feeling the light hum of its circuits against his palm. The dog didn't resist. It seemed to understand that he was helping. Don't worry. Pixel, Eric whispered, I'll get you home safely. As he began his journey, he noticed the first signs of trouble. A drone zipped past, scanning the area. Its bright, red light paused on him for a second, before moving on. Security drones often mistook humans carrying unusual cargo as threats. Eric held Pixel closer and moved behind a stack of metal crates, letting the drone pass. Neo Aurora was full of challenges for someone on foot. Skyways and elevated roads were reserved for vehicles with clearance codes, and many streets below were crawling with scavengers looking for easy targets. Eric's mind raced. He had to plan his route carefully. The last thing he wanted was to lose Pixel or get caught up in trouble himself. He decided to take a less obvious path, cutting through the back alleys where fewer drones patrolled. Neon signs flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the wet concrete. Steam rose from vents in the ground, creating a mysterious, almost otherworldly atmosphere. Pixel's ears twitched at every sound, but the dog remained calm, trusting Eric completely. Along the way, Eric encountered a group of street scavengers. They were small-time criminals, taking advantage of the busy city to harass travelers and steal anything valuable. One of them, a tall figure with a metal arm, noticed Pixel immediately. Hey, that's a fancy dog, he sneered. Hand it over, and maybe we'll let you go without a scratch. Eric's heart pounded, but he didn't show fear. He had learned long ago that confidence often worked better than force. I don't think so, he said calmly, stepping in front of Pixel. You won't get the dog. The scavenger laughed, advancing. Eric looked around quickly. There were metal pipes and crates he could use, but he didn't want to hurt anyone unless he had to. Instead, he pulled a small EMP device from his pocket, standard issue for security officers. With a flick of his wrist, he activated it. A pulse of energy swept through the alley, and the scavenger's metal arm sparked and twitched. Leave, Eric said firmly. The scavenger cursed and retreated, dragging his friends with him. Pixel barked once, then wagged its tail. Eric laughed quietly. "Good boy," he said, patting the dog gently. As he continued, he noticed something odd. Pixel seemed to react to certain areas in a strange way, tugging toward a narrow passage lined with old, abandoned warehouses. Eric hesitated. Normally, he would avoid such areas. They were notorious for trouble. But the dog's insistence was clear. "All right, let's see what's over here," he said, guiding Pixel carefully. Inside the warehouse, the air was thick with dust and the faint smell of oil. Broken machines littered the floor. Pixel ran ahead, sniffing and scanning. Suddenly, a faint holographic projection flickered to life, displaying encrypted data streams. Pixel's circuits glowed brighter, and Eric realized that this dog was more than a pet. It was carrying vital information. Before he could analyze further, he heard a metallic clatter. Figures emerged from the shadows, masked hackers who had been trying to intercept Pixel. They didn't expect anyone to follow the dog here. Eric's mind raced. He had no weapons besides his EMP device and his own wits. But he had something the hackers didn't: human ingenuity. He tossed a small crate toward a pile of debris, creating a loud crash. The hackers turned, giving Eric a chance to grab Pixel and slip through a side door. They ran through a narrow tunnel that led back to the city streets. The sounds of Neo Aurora returned: the hum of drones, the distant roar of airships. But now, Eric felt a sense of urgency. He couldn't let Pixel fall into the wrong hands. Whoever wanted the dog's data would stop at nothing. Hours passed as he navigated the city, avoiding patrols and suspicious figures. Pixel remained calm, occasionally nuzzling against him as if reassuring him. Eric found himself smiling despite the tension. There was something about the dog's trust and loyalty that made the long journey worthwhile. Finally, the towering silhouette of the Vostech Corporation building came into view. Its glass walls reflected the neon lights of the city, and at the top, the holographic emblem of the company shimmered proudly. Eric felt a surge of relief. The hardest part was over. All that remained was to return Pixel safely to Dr. Voss. He entered the building's lobby, keeping an eye out for security cameras. As a junior officer, he had clearance, but he didn't want to trigger any unnecessary alarms. Pixel trotted beside him, seemingly confident now that home was near. At last, they reached Dr. Celine Voss's office. The door opened smoothly as if expecting them, and there she was, tall, sharp-eyed, and impeccably dressed. Her gaze fell on Eric and Pixel. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. "Eric," she said, her voice a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "I didn't expect to see you here. And you've brought Pixel back." Eric bowed slightly, keeping his composure. "Yes, ma'am. I found him wandering near the industrial sector. He seemed lost." Dr. Voss's expression softened, just slightly. "I see. And what reward do you desire, Lieutenant? Perhaps a kiss?" She smirked, teasing, her tone playful yet commanding. Eric chuckled nervously, patting Pixel. "No reward necessary, ma'am. I'm just glad he's safe." Pixel wagged its tail and nuzzled Dr. Voss's hand. She knelt and scratched behind his ears, smiling faintly. "Well," she said, standing again, "you've done more than return a lost dog today. You've proven something far more important. But that's for another time." Eric felt a strange sense of pride. He had faced the dangers of Neo Aurora, outsmarted scavengers and hackers, and kept his honor intact. All while a small dog had guided him, trusting entirely in his ability to protect it. As he left the office, Eric looked down at Pixel one last time. "Good job, little guy," he said softly. The city buzzed around him, full of lights, noise, and endless possibility. And for the first time in a long while, Eric felt truly alive, not because of technology, power, or rewards, but because of a simple act of courage and kindness that reminded him why being human was extraordinary. Eric left Dr. Voss's office feeling a strange mix of relief and curiosity. Pixel trotted beside him, tail wagging. Yet there was a tension in the air that made him uneasy. He had returned the dog safely. But something told him that this was not the end of the story. Neo Aurora, for all its brilliance, often hid dangers that only revealed themselves when you least expected. As he walked through the gleaming corridors of Vostek, Pixel suddenly stopped. The dog's ears perked up, and its cybernetic eyes glowed faintly. Eric noticed a small panel on Pixel's collar, flickering a light sequence he had not seen before. Curious, he crouched and examined it. A soft hum emerged, and then a faint holographic display projected from the dog's collar. Streams of encrypted data flowed in patterns, almost like a digital waterfall. Eric's heart raced. Pixel wasn't just a dog, it was a carrier of information. Data of this complexity could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Whoever had lost Pixel might not have been mere negligence. They might have been trying to hide something important. "All right, Pixel," Eric whispered. "Looks like our little adventure isn't over yet." He decided to take Pixel to a private location, away from the office, to analyze the data. Neo Aurora had safe houses scattered across the city for emergencies. One of them was an old abandoned maintenance facility that Eric had used before during training exercises. The journey to the facility was not simple. Neo Aurora's streets were crowded, and security drones patrolled nearly every corner. Eric kept Pixel close, moving quickly through alleyways and under the shadows of towering skyscrapers. They had to avoid cameras, automated police patrols, and the usual swarm of scavengers who saw anything unusual as a chance for profit. As they reached a quieter street, Eric felt the first real danger of the journey. A group of rogue hackers, known in the city as the Shadow Code, emerged from a side alley. Their faces were obscured by glowing masks, and their hands glinted with small, illegal cyber tools. "Looks like we've found our delivery," one of them said, pointing at Pixel. "Hand over the dog, and we might let you leave." Eric's mind raced. He could try to run, but the narrow streets would make it impossible to escape. Fighting was risky too. The hackers were skilled, and even a minor injury could ruin everything. He needed a plan, fast. "Pixel, stay close," Eric murmured. He noticed a series of loose panels along the wall nearby. With a quick motion, he knocked one over, creating a loud clatter. The hackers turned, confused. Using the distraction, Eric ducked into a narrow side passage, Pixel following swiftly. The passage twisted and turned, leading them toward a network of old maintenance tunnels beneath the city. Once inside the tunnels, Eric allowed himself a moment to breathe. Pixel sat beside him, calm and alert. The hum of the dog's cybernetic circuits filled the air, and Eric realized that Pixel was more than just a companion, he was a guide. The dog seemed to know the tunnels, leading Eric along paths that avoided patrols and traps. Hours passed as they navigated the maze. Neo Aurora's underground was dark and damp, filled with the smell of oil and rust. Occasionally, Eric would encounter remnants of the city's past broken machinery, abandoned carts, and old maintenance bots that had long stopped functioning. Despite the gloom, Eric felt a sense of trust in Pixel's guidance. Suddenly, they reached a section of the tunnel where the walls were lined with glowing panels, pulsing with data streams. Pixel stopped, its eyes flashing brightly. Eric leaned closer, and the holographic display from the dog's collar expanded. Lines of code, encrypted and complex, filled the space. Eric frowned. This was more than just simple corporate data, it was a message, hidden within layers of security protocols. Someone had embedded something valuable in Pixel's cybernetic system. He carefully accessed the projection with his portable decryptor, and the first pieces of the puzzle began to emerge. The data revealed a coordinated cyber attack targeting Neo Aurora's city grid. If successful, it would cripple communications, power, and automated defense systems across the entire city. Eric's stomach tightened. Pixel had carried something far more important than anyone could have imagined. "We've got to stop this," he whispered. "And we've got to do it fast." Before he could analyze further, a loud clanging echoed from deeper within the tunnel. Shadows moved along the walls, hackers. The Shadow Code had tracked Pixel, and now they were closing in. Eric grabbed a small EMP device from his belt. He had one chance. When the hackers arrived, Eric activated the device. A pulse of energy swept through the tunnel, short-circuiting their tools and causing sparks to fly from their masks. Confused and blinded by the EMP, they shouted in frustration. Eric took the opportunity to run, Pixel bounding beside him with remarkable speed. They emerged into a hidden service exit that opened onto an empty rooftop. The city stretched out before them, neon lights glowing in the evening mist. Eric could see the distant Vostek Tower, shining like a beacon. He knew that returning there could allow the corporation's experts to help. But he also knew he had to be careful the hackers might be watching from other vantage points. Pixel tugged at his sleeve, guiding him to a maintenance elevator that led to a secure floor of an older building. Once inside, Eric let out a breath. He crouched beside Pixel and studied the data more closely. The plan was sophisticated layers of attacks synchronized to overload the city's systems simultaneously. Eric realized that only human judgment could prevent the disaster. Machines alone could not anticipate the hackers' unpredictable moves. Hours passed as he worked. Pixel lay quietly beside him, occasionally nudging his hand when Eric seemed too tense. It was then that Eric began to understand something crucial. Pixel was more than a carrier of data. The dog had been trained not just for obedience, but for loyalty, guidance, and subtle intelligence. In every critical moment, Pixel had helped him avoid danger, find paths, and make choices. "You really are remarkable," Eric said softly. "I think Dr. Voss was right, you're not just a dog." As night fell over Neo Aurora, Eric realized that the city outside was unaware of the disaster looming over it. People walked the streets, oblivious to the danger, trusting technology to protect them. Yet it was human courage, intuition, and the bond between a man and a dog that would stand between the city and chaos. Suddenly, the tunnel shook. A distant explosion echoed through the underground network. The Shadow Code had started their plan earlier than expected. Eric's pulse quickened. Time was running out. "Come on, Pixel," he said, standing. "We have to move." They ran through twisting passages, finally reaching a secure terminal that Eric could access without interference. Using Pixel's implanted systems, he began sending counter-signals, attempting to neutralize parts of the hacker's plan. Each line of code was delicate. One mistake could trigger the very attack he was trying to prevent. Pixel barked once, signaling a problem in the code. Eric adjusted the sequences, following the dog's subtle cues. Together, they worked like a team, human ingenuity, guided by instinct and loyalty. The hours stretched into the early morning, and Neo Aurora remained unaware of the battle being fought beneath its streets. Finally, after a tense and exhausting night, Eric sent the final counter-signal. The city grid stabilized. The threat neutralized. The Shadow Code's plan had failed. Eric leaned back, exhausted, but relief washed over him. Pixel sat beside him, panting lightly, and nuzzled his hand. "You did it, little guy," Eric said. "We really did it." For the first time, he understood the depth of human strength. It wasn't just about muscles, weapons, or technology. It was about courage, moral choice, loyalty, and trust, the qualities that machines could never fully replicate. As the sun began to rise over Neo Aurora, casting soft pink and orange light over the city, Eric felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had faced danger, outsmarted enemies, and protected the city, all because he had chosen to act with integrity and bravery. And beside him, Pixel wagged its tail. A small yet powerful reminder that sometimes the smallest allies could make the biggest difference. Eric knew that more challenges would come. The city was vast, and threats were never far away. But he also knew this: humanity, with all its courage, ingenuity, and empathy, was capable of facing even the greatest dangers and emerging victorious. And so, the journey continued. Not just to return a dog, but to safeguard a city, uphold human values, and prove that even in a world dominated by technology, it was human heart and mind that truly mattered. The streets of Neo Aurora were quiet as Eric made his way back to the Vostek Tower. The neon lights reflected off the wet pavement, painting streaks of blue, purple, and pink across his path. He carried Pixel carefully, the small cyber dog nestled against his chest, still humming softly with its enhanced circuits. After the long night of danger and running, Eric felt exhausted. But there was also a sense of purpose that kept his steps steady. He had neutralized the Shadow Code's plan. But he knew that the work wasn't done until he delivered Pixel back to Dr. Celine Voss. The dog's loyalty, bravery, and intelligence had been extraordinary. It had guided him through danger, warned him of traps, and even helped him correct coding errors during the cyber attack. Pixel was no ordinary dog, and Eric wanted Dr. Voss to know just how remarkable her companion was. As he approached the towering Vostech building, Eric felt a flutter of nervous anticipation. The office had been imposing before, but now he had seen firsthand the risks Pixel faced in the city. He knew that Dr. Voss would be impressed, not just by the return of her dog, but by the hidden threats Eric had confronted. The lobby was nearly empty at this hour. The usual bustle of employees replaced by the quiet hum of automated systems. Eric stepped forward confidently, presenting his security clearance at the checkpoint. The guard scanned him briefly, giving a curt nod. "All clear. Go ahead," he said. Eric ascended the elevator, Pixel's circuits gently glowing in response to the floor numbers. He tried to steady his racing thoughts. What would Dr. Voss say? Would she recognize the danger he had just prevented? Or would she see only the safe return of a lost dog, unaware of the larger crisis he had stopped? When the elevator doors opened, he was met with the familiar sight of Dr. Voss's office, sleek, modern, and almost intimidating in its perfection. She was standing by the large panoramic window, looking out over the city. Her silhouette was sharp, her posture confident. She turned as he entered, her sharp eyes scanning him, then falling on Pixel. "Back so soon," she said, her tone calm but edged with curiosity. "And you've brought Pixel safely. I must say, I am impressed." Eric carefully set Pixel down on the floor. The dog wagged its tail and nudged Dr. Voss. "Happy to be home." Dr. Voss knelt slightly, allowing Pixel to jump into her arms. "Good boy," she whispered, scratching behind his ears. She looked up at Eric, her eyes brightening slightly. "But tell me, Eric, what did you face out there?" Eric took a deep breath. He could have recounted the entire night, the tunnels, the hackers, the cyber attack, but he decided to summarize, keeping his focus on the importance of human intuition and courage. "I faced a group called the Shadow Code," he began. "They were after Pixel, trying to use his systems to carry out a city-wide cyber attack. I stopped them. The dog guided me through danger. Without him, I don't think I could have succeeded." Dr. Voss's eyebrows raised slightly, a mixture of surprise and admiration on her face. "The Shadow Code," she said slowly. "So they were the ones planning to destabilize Neo Aurora. I had suspected they were active again, but I did not think they would be bold enough to come for Pixel directly." She paused, studying Eric's face. "And yet you succeeded. Impressive." Eric felt a small surge of pride but kept his composure. "It was Pixel who helped the most," he said. "He anticipated danger, led me safely, and even helped me correct errors in the system. I just followed his lead." Dr. Voss smiled faintly, something rare and genuine. "I see. Loyalty, intuition, courage, qualities that machines can never truly replicate. Pixel is special, but your human judgment is what made this possible. That is what I value most." She stood and motioned for Eric to follow her toward her desk. On it was a holographic terminal displaying the city's status, now stable and secure. "Because of you, Neo Aurora is safe," she continued. "This could have been a disaster. The Shadow Code's plan would have caused chaos across the entire city." Eric nodded, feeling the weight of his actions settle over him. He had faced danger, relied on his wits and his courage, and worked alongside a remarkable companion. He had prevented a disaster that could have affected millions. And now, here he was, standing before one of the city's most powerful figures, being recognized not for power or technology, but for human qualities, judgment, bravery, and moral choice. Dr. Voss leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. And yet, you ask for no reward. You did this for Pixel, for the city, not for recognition. Eric shook his head. I just did what I thought was right. That's reward enough. Her eyes softened further. You remind me why humanity is still vital. Even in a world dominated by technology, machines can follow orders, calculate probabilities, and execute plans flawlessly, but they cannot act with loyalty, empathy, or moral judgment. That is what makes humans irreplaceable. Eric looked at her, understanding the weight of her words. He realized that this mission had been more than a simple act of returning a dog. It had proven the very essence of what it meant to be human in a world increasingly dominated by machines. Courage, integrity, loyalty, these were not traits that could be coded or manufactured. They came from choices, from heart, from the willingness to act in the face of danger. Dr. Voss, Arik said softly, I think Pixel saved me as much as I saved him. He taught me something too. She nodded, glancing at the dog now, sitting calmly by her side. Indeed. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Strength is not in technology alone. It is in understanding how to use it wisely, guided by human judgment. And sometimes, guidance comes from the most unexpected sources. There was a pause, a quiet moment as the sun began to rise over the city. The sky outside the window glowed with soft shades of orange and pink, reflecting the promise of a new day. Neo Aurora was alive, unaware of the danger that had passed, yet safe thanks to the courage of one human and the loyalty of a small dog. Dr. Voss finally spoke again. Eric, I would like you to know that your actions have not gone unnoticed. You will be recognized among your peers, not merely for bravery, but for demonstrating the qualities that truly matter in this city. Eric felt a mixture of pride and humility. Recognition was not why he had acted, but it was still meaningful. More than medals or praise, it was a confirmation that humanity still had a place in a world increasingly dominated by machines. Pixel jumped onto Eric's lap, resting his head against the officer's chest. Eric stroked his fur gently. We did it, buddy. Together. Dr. Voss watched them with a faint smile. Indeed. Together. And perhaps this is only the beginning. There are more threats out there. Challenges that even the most advanced systems cannot handle. Without human guidance. Eric looked at the city below, the neon lights still shimmering even in the morning sun. He felt a deep sense of resolve. There would be challenges, more dangers, and difficult choices ahead, but he knew one thing. As long as humans acted with courage, loyalty, and wisdom, there was no threat they could not face. For now, though, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The city was safe. Pixel was home, and in that moment, Eric realized the true power of human heart and mind, a power that could never be fully replicated, a power that could save a city, and perhaps even a world. As he prepared to leave the office, Dr. Voss placed a hand on his shoulder. One last thing, Arik, she said. You have proven yourself today. Take pride. But also remember, the city needs more people like you. Never forget what it means to act with integrity and courage. Eric nodded, understanding fully. I won't, ma'am, I promise. With that, he stepped out into the city streets once again, Pixel at his side. The sun had risen fully now, casting the city in golden light. The dangers of the night had passed, but Eric knew that Neo Aurora, like any great city, would always have challenges waiting. And he, alongside his loyal companion, would face them not just with technology, but with the very human qualities that made them extraordinary. And so, the return was complete. Recognition had been given, lessons had been learned, and the bond between human and dog had grown even stronger. Eric understood now that heroism wasn't about power, rank, or rewards. It was about action, choice, and the courage to do what was right even when the world was uncertain and danger was near. Neo Aurora sparkled beneath the morning sky, unaware that its safety had been secured by a young officer and a remarkable little dog. But for Eric and Pixel, that was enough. They had proven that even in a city dominated by machines, human heart, intelligence, and loyalty could make all the difference. The morning sun spilled golden light across Neo Aurora, reflecting off the towers and streets like liquid fire. The city looked peaceful. But Eric knew better. Danger had a way of hiding behind the brightest lights, waiting for the slightest misstep. He walked alongside Pixel toward Vostek's research wing, the small dog trotting confidently beside him. Dr. Voss had requested their presence early that morning. Eric wasn't sure what to expect, but he sensed that the calm he had felt yesterday was temporary. Pixel, for its part, seemed unusually alert, ears twitching at every distant hum and echo in the city. The dog's cybernetic systems glowed faintly, as if sensing the urgency in the air. When they reached the research wing, Dr. Voss was waiting. Her expression was serious, a rare sight. She gestured for Eric to follow her into a secure lab. The room was filled with holographic screens, each displaying streams of complex data, city schematics, and network diagrams. "Eric," she began, "I need you to see something critical." Eric watched as she tapped on a holographic interface. Pixel's collar lit up, and a hidden data sequence projected onto the main screen. Lines of code danced in the air, revealing layers of encryption even more sophisticated than the shadow code had used. "This," Dr. Voss continued, "is what Pixel has been carrying all along. Not just information for a small cyber attack, but a complete blueprint of the shadow code's operations." Eric's eyes widened. "A blueprint?" Dr. Voss nodded. "Every location, every contact, every device they control, it's all here." Pixel's cybernetic systems had been storing it, hidden in layers of encryption. Whoever designed him knew the importance of safeguarding it. If it fell into the wrong hands, the entire city could have been compromised. Pixel wagged its tail, nuzzling against Eric's leg. It was hard to believe that such a small creature held the key to the city's safety. Eric leaned closer to the screen, scanning the data. The scope of the shadow code's plans was staggering. They weren't just after the city grid, they had designs to infiltrate communication networks, transportation systems, and even medical facilities. The city's very functioning was at stake. Dr. Voss studied him closely. "I had suspected they were planning something big, but I never imagined the data would be embedded in Pixel. This is a level of foresight and trust in humans that I have rarely seen. The dog's instincts and your judgment together saved us." Eric felt a mix of pride and concern. Pride for having succeeded, but concern for the work still ahead. "What should we do now?" he asked. "If this data exists, the shadow code will want it back. They won't stop until they retrieve it." Dr. Voss nodded. "Exactly. That's why I've arranged for additional protection. We need to act carefully. I want you to lead the first phase of neutralizing their network. Pixel will be essential, guiding you through areas where our systems cannot detect them. Your judgment and his instincts together can outmaneuver the shadow code." Eric glanced at Pixel, who barked softly, as if ready for action. "Then let's do it," he said. The first step was infiltration. The shadow code had safe houses scattered across the city, hidden beneath abandoned buildings and derelict factories. The data in Pixel's system provided exact locations. However, approaching them directly would be dangerous. Each site was guarded not just physically but digitally, with traps and countermeasures designed to detect intruders. Eric and Pixel began their mission carefully. Using Neo Aurora's rooftops and hidden passages, they moved from one site to another. Pixel's sensors scanned for electronic signatures, detecting traps, alarms, and hidden observers. Eric relied on his human intuition to choose paths, interpret signs, and make decisions under pressure. At the first safe house, they found a small group of hackers monitoring systems. Eric observed quietly from a shadowed corner. Pixel's eyes glowed faintly, signaling a weak point in their setup. Using a portable device, Eric carefully disabled the alarms without alerting the hackers. It was precision work. One wrong move could trigger a cascade of warnings. Inside, the data servers hummed with activity. Eric copied the relevant files, securing them onto a portable drive that he could transport safely. Pixel remained alert, ears twitching at every sound, ready to guide him if danger appeared. The operation was repeated at several other locations. Each time, Eric relied on human ingenuity and careful observation. Technology alone wouldn't have worked. The hackers had anticipated automated responses, but they could not predict human creativity and intuition. By evening, they had secured most of the Shadow Code's network. However, the last safe house presented the greatest challenge. It was a fortified building, surrounded by high walls and guarded by drones and sensors. Pixel growled softly, sensing the complexity of the threat. Eric studied the perimeter. Climbing the walls was possible, but there were pressure-sensitive floors inside. Direct entry risked alerting the entire network. He paused, thinking through options. Human judgment was required more than ever. Finally, he devised a plan. Using a combination of rooftop traversal, careful timing, and Pixel's guidance, they approached a side entrance that was lightly monitored. Pixel's sensors detected an active scanner, and Eric adjusted his path accordingly. The dog's instincts guided him to the precise spot to slip past unnoticed. Inside, the safe house was dark but filled with activity. Screens glowed with data streams, showing locations, contacts, and plans. Eric worked quickly, copying files while avoiding detection. Pixel nudged him when a drone moved too close, allowing him to adjust his position. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the shadows. "You're too late," it said. Eric froze. A figure stepped forward, clad in black, face obscured by a mask. The Shadow Code had anticipated intrusions. They were ready. Eric didn't panic. He relied on his instincts, honed over months of training and the events of the past few days. Pixel barked once, signaling an escape route. Using a combination of agility and strategy, Eric moved quickly, dodging the figure and heading toward the exit. Pixel followed, guiding him with precision. They reached the rooftop just as alarms began to blare. Drones swarmed below, scanning for intruders. Eric held Pixel close and activated a small EMP device, temporarily disabling the drone's sensors. They leapt to the next rooftop, racing across the skyline until the alarms faded into the distance. Breathing heavily, Eric looked at Pixel. "We did it," he said, relief washing over him. "We got everything." Back at Vostech, Dr. Voss reviewed the recovered data. Her eyes scanned the network diagrams and files, confirming the success of their operation. "You've exceeded expectations, Eric," she said. "And Pixel, you've proven that even the smallest allies can make the biggest difference." Eric smiled. Pixel wagged his tail, happy to be back in familiar territory. The mission had been dangerous, exhausting, and complex. But it had demonstrated something essential. Human judgment, courage, and loyalty were irreplaceable. "You've proven something important," Dr. Voss continued. "Neo Aurora's safety doesn't depend solely on machines or technology. It depends on humans making the right choices, even under pressure. And sometimes, it depends on companions like Pixel, who guide and protect you." Eric nodded, understanding the depth of her words. The city was safe for now, but the experience had left him wiser, more confident, and aware of the fragile balance between technology and human judgment. Pixel jumped onto his lap, and Eric stroked his fur gently. "We're a good team, aren't we?" he said softly. The dog barked once. As if agreeing, Dr. Voss watched them, a rare warmth in her eyes. "Indeed. And remember, Eric, the greatest strength of any city, any system, any society, lies in the courage, intelligence, and integrity of its people. You've proven that today." As Eric looked out over Neo Aurora, He felt a sense of pride and responsibility. The city might be unaware of the threats that had been neutralized, but he knew the truth. Humanity, guided by judgment, loyalty, and courage, had once again prevailed. And somewhere beside him, Pixel's soft hum reminded him that even in a world dominated by machines, the bond between human and companion, intuition and action, could change the course of events. Together, they had saved a city. And together, they would face whatever challenges came next. Neo Aurora glowed beneath them, unaware of the night's hidden dangers, safe because humans had acted, and acted well. Eric understood that the real reward was not recognition, not praise, but the knowledge that courage, loyalty, and wisdom had triumphed. The city had been saved, but Eric knew this was only one battle. The Shadow Code had been disrupted, but not destroyed. There would be new threats, new challenges, and new dangers waiting. Yet he also knew something far more important. As long as humans acted with courage, intelligence, and integrity, there was nothing they could not face. And with Pixel by his side, Eric was ready for whatever came next. Neo Aurora shimmered beneath the evening sky, a city alive with lights and motion. Flying cars glided between towering skyscrapers, and pedestrians moved through the streets below, oblivious to the hidden threats that had been neutralized just days before. The city had returned to its usual rhythm, but for Eric Tehran, the events of the past week weighed heavily on his mind. He walked alongside Pixel through the quiet streets near Vostek, the dog trotting confidently beside him. The city had been saved, thanks to human courage and judgment, combined with the intelligence and loyalty of a small, extraordinary companion. Yet Eric knew the Shadow Code was not entirely defeated. Their network had been disrupted, their plans thwarted, but remnants of their operation could still pose danger. Vigilance was necessary. Eric had been summoned to Dr. Celine Voss's office once more. She had a reputation for being strict, even intimidating. But today, her tone carried a rare warmth. "Eric," she began, "you've proven yourself in ways few can imagine. You've faced danger, outsmarted enemies, and safeguarded the city. It is time that your efforts are recognized properly." Recognition had never been Eric's goal. He had acted out of duty, courage, and a desire to protect the innocent. But he could not deny a small feeling of pride at her words. Pixel wagged its tail beside him, sensing the significance of the moment. Dr. Voss gestured toward a holographic screen that projected an image of the city, highlighting areas that had been compromised and subsequently secured. "The data you retrieved from Pixel," she continued, "has allowed us to strengthen citywide defenses, identify and apprehend remaining Shadow Code operatives, and ensure the safety of millions. This is no small achievement." One quote. Eric listened, humbled. He had faced the Shadow Code across dark tunnels, abandoned factories, and hidden safe houses. He had relied on instinct, creativity, and careful judgment, often guided by Pixel's subtle cues. Together, they had prevented a disaster that could have paralyzed the entire city. Dr. Voss's expression softened as she added, "I have arranged a formal commendation for you, recognizing your bravery and intelligence. But more importantly, I want you to understand something essential. Neo Aurora's safety depends not just on technology, but on humans capable of judgment, courage, and loyalty. You have demonstrated all three in abundance." Eric felt a wave of satisfaction. Recognition was not what drove him, but validation that human qualities mattered, even in a city ruled by machines, was deeply meaningful. Pixel barked softly, nudging him as if to share in the moment. After a moment, Dr. Voss stepped closer. "And, of course," she said with a slight smile, "we cannot forget Pixel, whose loyalty and instincts guided you through peril. He is as much a hero as you are." Eric crouched to pet Pixel. The dog wagged its tail and nuzzled his hand, as if acknowledging the praise. "We make a good team, don't we, buddy?" he said softly. Pixel barked once, a small, joyful sound that echoed through the office. Dr. Voss gestured to a chair. "Sit," she said. "I want to discuss the final phase of the shadow code operation. There are still pockets of their network active, and your insight will be invaluable in neutralizing them completely." Eric followed her instructions, and together they reviewed the remaining threats. Pixel's sensors projected subtle warnings, highlighting areas where human intuition and judgment would be necessary. It was clear that while technology could provide information, only humans could interpret it fully, anticipate unpredictable behavior, and make choices under pressure. As they planned the final operations, Eric reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had started simply by returning a lost dog. That small act had led to the discovery of a massive conspiracy, a dangerous network, and a test of human courage and judgment. The entire experience had reinforced a simple truth. Humans, with their empathy, creativity, and moral compass, could achieve what machines alone could not. The next days were intense. Eric led carefully coordinated operations against the remaining shadow code cells. Pixel remained at his side, guiding him through complex scenarios where intuition and careful observation were crucial. Together, they neutralized the network, apprehended operatives, and secured the city against future attacks. Neo Aurora remained oblivious to the danger, its residents continuing daily life, unaware of the chaos that had been averted. Finally, after the last operation, Eric returned to Voss Tech. Exhausted but satisfied, he found Dr. Voss waiting with a formal commendation. The holographic display projected his accomplishments, thwarting attacks, safeguarding critical data, and demonstrating the value of human judgment in a world dominated by technology. "Eric," she said, handing him the commendation, "your actions have ensured the safety of millions. But beyond that, you've shown what it truly means to be human in an age of machines. Courage, loyalty, and intelligence. These are qualities that cannot be coded, programmed, or replicated. They come from heart and mind. You have proven that they still matter." Eric accepted the commendation with humility, glancing down at Pixel. "We did this together," he said softly. Pixel barked, tail wagging in agreement. The small dog had been more than a companion. It had been a guide, a teacher, and a reminder of the importance of trust and loyalty. Dr. Voss smiled faintly. "Indeed. And now, the city owes its safety to two heroes. One human, one canine. Remember this lesson, Eric. The smallest allies, the quietest actions, and the choices guided by integrity can change the world." Eric nodded, feeling the truth of her words resonate deeply. He had faced danger, relied on instinct and intellect, and acted with courage and moral judgment. Neo Aurora was safe not because of machines alone, but because humans still possessed qualities that technology could never replicate. As he left Voss Tech, Pixel trotting happily beside him, Eric looked out over the city. The streets were alive with lights and movement, the hum of drones and vehicles filling the air. Yet beneath the normalcy, the city had been protected by choices, courage, and loyalty. Eric felt a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced before. The shadow code had been defeated. The city was safe. And the bond between him and Pixel had grown stronger than ever. It was a reminder that heroism was not about recognition, rewards, or power. It was about acting with integrity, courage, and compassion, even when the world was uncertain and danger was near. He paused at the edge of a rooftop, looking at the glowing horizon. Neo Aurora stretched endlessly before him, a city of machines and lights, yet still alive, with human potential. Pixel sat at his side, ears perked, alert to the slightest sound. "You know, buddy," Eric said softly, "we've done a lot. And somehow, I think this is only the beginning." Pixel barked once, tail wagging. It was a sound full of trust, loyalty, and encouragement. Together, they had faced danger, outsmarted enemies, and protected countless lives. And together, they would face whatever came next. Eric took a deep breath, feeling the city's energy around him. Neo Aurora would continue to grow, evolve, and face new challenges. But as long as humans acted with courage, intelligence, and moral integrity, there was no threat they could not face. The lessons of the past week were clear. Technology could assist, but only humans could guide, judge, and choose the right path. Loyalty and companionship could come from unexpected sources, and small actions like returning a lost dog could ripple outward to change the fate of a city. Eric glanced down at Pixel, who looked up at him with bright, trusting eyes. "We make a good team," he said quietly. "A really good team." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the city, but the streets remained safe. Neo Aurora had been protected by courage, judgment, and loyalty. Humanity had prevailed, and in that quiet, glowing moment, Eric understood something profound. No matter how advanced the machines, no matter how dangerous the threats, human heart and mind, guided by integrity and compassion, would always shine the brightest. Pixel nuzzled his hand once more, and Eric smiled. Together, they had not only saved a city, they had proven the enduring strength of humanity itself. Neo Aurora sparkled beneath them, unaware of the dangers averted, yet safe because humans had chosen to act, guided by wisdom and courage. Eric felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that the world, though imperfect and full of uncertainty, was better because of choices made with heart. And so, their story ended not with fanfare or celebration, but with quiet triumph. A city safe, a bond strengthened, and a hero's heart reminded that humanity, in all its flaws and brilliance, could achieve greatness, even in a world dominated by technology.